Right here are Reed Shepherd's numbers from his rookie season. Low points, low rebounds, low efficiency, and a whole bunch of people thinking this man was a bust. Well, next to those numbers from last year are his numbers from this year. And all of a sudden, now that Reed Shepherd has gotten more minutes, he has gotten more opportunity, and he has gotten some confidence, he not only looks like a good NBA player, he looks like a future star and one of the best shooters in the league.
Oh, pull back by Reed Shepherd. Oh!
Did you just see that? Look at how quickly he crossed Desmond Bane on that play. That's not just an elite shooter, that's an elite scorer. And right now, we are watching Reed Shepherd get more confident every single game. And the Rockets are thriving as a result. Because entering this season, after the injury to Fred VanVleet, all eyes were on Reed Shepherd and whether he would be able to step up in place of those Fred minutes. And so far, well, he's looking like he can do exactly that. But this wasn't always the case, because after his first game of the season, people hit the panic button. They decided he's too young, he's too timid, he's too scared. Houston need to make a trade. And not only was this a hilarious overreaction to Reed's first game in an elevated role, but his first game in that role was against OKC in OKC.
Well, first thing, who hasn't had a bad loss against OKC at this point?
Yeah, when Steph and Luka and Ant are shooting 30%, a second-year player is allowed to struggle against Oklahoma. But since his first 2 games of the season, Reed hasn't just been good, he's been scary good, averaging 13 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, but on shooting splits of 54% from the field and 48% from 3. And during this period of time, the Rockets have had the #1 best offense in the league and a 9-1. And I mentioned it before, but we are seeing an entirely different version of Reed Shepherd. The kind of version who was doing things like this.
Probably the dunk of the year, in my opinion. Shepherd!
Or like on this play, with a few minutes remaining and the Rockets trailing the Spurs. Reed gets the screen from Alpi, and if Wemby isn't going to step up, Reed is going to punish you every single time. And this is the difference in his confidence level. The first few games of the season, and going back to last season, we saw a lot of spot-up threes and catch-and-shoot threes. But now he is controlling the ball. He is demanding screens, and if that defender is even a split second late to contest, he is shooting every single time, and half of those shots are going in. I mean, from that same game against San Antonio, look at the confidence here to get the loose ball, and in transition, not a second thought, but to pull up and hit that 3. I don't want to say it, but that looks like someone. And whilst this video is obviously about Reed Shepherd, when you are taking these kind of pull-up threes off of screens, it also helps when you have a great screen. And if there is one player who has always elevated his guards, I'm not talking about Alperen Şengün and his playmaking and screening, it is that big Kiwi, Steven Adams. Because there are screens, and then there are screens. Just like here, where Reed is getting harassed by Carrington, and just look at the screen from Steve-O. That is a light screen from Adams, and Carrington looked like a crash dummy as he just flung off Steve-O, and it's that extra second and bit of space that allows Reed to get off effectively an open pull-up 3. And one thing about Reed's shooting isn't just the quick trigger or the confidence, it's also the range he has. Like here where he gets the pass from Amen Thompson, and with him being a few feet behind the line, look how casually he pulls that 3. And that is not just useful because it looks cool. No, this is fantastic for spacing, because defenses always want to cheat off their man just a bit, but if Reed is 30 feet away from the basket, you can't do both. You can't cheat off him and then get back to him in time. And if you double off him, well, that's an equally big mistake. And it was just so obvious Reed was going to be an elite shooter. Not only was he one of the most efficient college scorers ever, but in the NBA, in the G League, whenever he actually got opportunity, minutes, and reps, he was an elite three-point shooter, and we are seeing it now again in the NBA. And all of a sudden, when the shooting reaches this level, every other part of his game is starting to open up. Just like here, where Kispert closes at him aggressively, so Reed puts the ball on the floor and gets to the rim for the and one. Even in transition this time where Reed gets the ball, and because Isaac is so far up, worried about that pull-up three, he just crosses him and then with the space flies to the rim. And you can also see the bench's reaction from that play. In fact, if you want any idea as to how important Reed is for this team, just look at how his teammates treat him. Just like after this play where Reed dives onto the ball to force the turnover against Denny, and look how hyped KD is. You don't give this kind of energy to a young player unless you know how important they are for your team. I know people will say this is not a big deal, but it is. I promise you, when Kevin Durant is having that kind of reaction, it's because he knows what Reed Sheppard can do for this team. Not just in the future, but right now, the level of shooting he gives this team, you can barely find this anywhere else in the NBA, regardless of age. And getting back to the scoring, what I really love is when Reed is patient with the defense. Like here, where he rejects the screen from Steve-O. He keeps Waters on his back, and then with Wemby dropping back, he pulls from about 15 feet with that silky jumper. Or this time, where again, it's that screen from who else? And Bane does a good job staying attached, so look at Reed just use his back to keep him at distance, and then the pull-up two. And this just means when teams run him off the three-point line, which is obviously going to happen, he can take a couple of dribbles and get to his pull-up two. He can get all the way to the rim. He can even create opportunities for his teammates, and we are seeing it every single game. The confidence in his game is just rapidly increasing. Now, all of this is great, but I've only talked about one aspect of the game. What about the defense? Well, I'm glad you asked, because when I watched Reed in that first game of the season against OKC, I couldn't care less if he shot 3 of 30 against that defense. What was more concerning was how much he was getting hunted on the other end, and he was struggling, we can be honest. And this is always going to happen with his size. But since that game, what Reed has done so much better is, firstly, he's been more engaged and better at staying in front of his man. But the points Reed gives up on defense, I promise you, he is going to make up a lot of that with his defensive playmaking. Because at one point in his career, Reed Sheppard is going to lead the league in steals because his defensive anticipation is genuinely special. And it's not just the steals either. Despite his size, Reed is a ridiculously good shot blocker. Just like here, where he gets put in the action, and with 2 screens that he has to fight around, it looks like Carrington has him beat, but he comes from nowhere, and the timing of that block. Or again here, where he's chasing around Gary Trent Jr., and let me say that word again, timing. Normally when a guard has blocked shots, they're either Amen Thompson and 6'7", or it's Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet who get credited for those little swipe downs. Reed genuinely comes from behind and blocks shots like a 6'2" Matisse Thybulle. He's just unfortunately 6 inches shorter, otherwise the NBA would be looking at the greatest player of all time. Too soon? Either way, Reed Sheppard is doing exactly what we all thought and hoped he could do, and the Rockets are thriving as a result. And if you want to hear me continue to talk about Reed and the NBA in general, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Have a great day.